If you're even slightly vain, even slightly. So welcome very much. I'm really excited that we have Sue Drinnan here to talk about resilience by choice. Many of you heard a little bit of what Sue had to say actually when Carrie Gallant was doing her presentation, because Sue was able to contribute a few thoughts that were nice teasers for this session. And I know that it's going to be a great session. So looking forward to it. But I'm going to give you those few little public interest notes first. So the next thing that we have coming up is not a speaker event, but I do want to make sure everybody's aware of it, just in case it's something that you are interested in and might be able to attend. We're doing a weekend game jam, June 17th to 19th. If you want to know anything about a game jam, catch either me or Darcy. Afterwards, we were both at the last one. It was a sensational event, and we are focused at creating collaborative games in a group. So games, these are board games. We're focusing on tabletop games, but they are obviously something that can be converted into online games as well. But the focus is creating tabletop games that can either be used in mediation or might just be part of what changes the culture if we're just doing enough that is collaborative as the way that we start working with games and playing with people. So any range of things, people will come with all kinds of different interests. Let us know if you have any interest in participating. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be really, really fun. We don't have any more events this summer until the Fringe starts. And I think most of you know that we have decided that our October 4th session, which is going to be the next speaker talk, is actually going to be a group discussion about plays about conflict, the play at the Fringe Festival. So we will be posting a list. The executive director of the Vancouver Fringe has agreed to go through and come up with his list of what he thinks are going to be the top plays about conflict. I'm going to do the same because I might have a really different perspective on what plays about conflict look like. He was not as convinced that the phone sex operator one was really about conflict resolution skills as I was. So we're going to have, but man, she had the best mediation skills I have ever seen. I absolutely, it was the best mediation skills ever on display, and improv throughout. It was awesome. But as a result, I will give a list, he will give a list. There will probably be some commonality, and we're going to encourage people to go see a few of the plays and come and discuss them on October 4th. So watch for that list and watch for our notification about here's the plays we think you ought to see at the Fringe. Okay? Beyond that, for the online audience, I am on email, but please remember that I am looking at the CoRe email today. I don't always catch it when people send it to my own email because I'm opening up only the CoRe one. So CoReClinic1@gmail.com if you've got a question. And now I'm going to turn it over to Sue Drinnan.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So today we'll be talking about resilience. My background is I'm a neuroscientist by training, and I'm a certified executive coach, and I'm a coach with the International Coach Federation. Are there any other coaches here as well? Okay. So helping people to sort through and push past some of the struggles that they've been through. Anybody who's doing a mediation obviously is dealing with somebody who's working through things. So today, yeah, got it. Today we're going to be talking about the neuroscience of resilience. We're going to be practicing some tools, and we're going to be each having designed your own action plan to deepen your own resilience. So everybody should have 3 pieces of paper, and we're going to start with the slides. This one.
And for those who are online, the slides are posted on the website, so you should be able to open them up if you can't see them.
Mm-hmm. So who can call out words that pop into your head when I say resilience? I'll repeat them.
Flexible.
Flexible.
Centered.
Centered.
Capable.
Capable.
Self-aware.
Self-aware.
Enduring.
Enduring. Great words. Fantastic. So one of the the commonalities is people who are resilient know how to navigate the unexpected challenges, and also they are not in denial, right? So they're able to see reality and move forward, accept it. And so who's heard of Kubler-Ross? So the classic phases of basically grieving, so letting go of the past so you can move into the future. So that's DABDA, which stands for denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. It's a bit of an arc there. So that's one characteristic. Another one is they're able to recover by learning. So it's not just getting back to where they started, but actually learning the lessons and the benefits that a person can gain from it. And the third piece is it's chosen. And so there are many, many choices that we do unconsciously. And I will return to this again and again. So John Kabat-Zinn, has anybody heard about that? Heard his name before? He's one of the gurus really promoting the practice of mediation. Can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. So one of the things that comes up is learned helplessness. And so they first really coined the term when merchant marines during the Second World War, many of the ships were blown up, and they couldn't figure out why so many of the older Marines were surviving much longer than the fitter, younger ones. And so when they looked at it and interviewed the survivors, they'd been through so much that they had heard stories, and they clung to that piece of wood, and they really, really believed that someone is going to find them. Whereas the younger people had, I guess, not experienced as much, weren't as tough, I guess, and all they could see is waves, and they just gave up. So that was measurable. They've done many, many scientific studies. One classic one is they held a wriggling rat. So of course the rat isn't happy about being picked up. They didn't hurt it, they just held it until it finally kind of gave up wriggling, and it just settled in the person's glove. And then they would do that, and then when they put the rats who gave up into water, they gave up wriggling, they also gave up swimming quicker. So they would give up the ghost. And another more recent one is they gave shocks. Have you ever licked a battery, a transistor battery? It's not fun, but they would give a zap to the dogs, and some of the dogs, they'd hear a sound just before it, and then another group of dogs, there was no pattern whatsoever. The dogs had no control. They'd get kind of zinged, and then they gave the dogs challenges. So one was they allowed the dog they moved them into a new cage that had a wall, and the dogs that could predict, that had a bit of control over when the sound came, they figured out to keep hunting. Maybe you can get out of this unpleasant room. And the ones that had the sound before, so they could predict the shocks, felt empowered, and they did hunt, and they were able to get out. Whereas the other ones, they didn't even try. So learned helplessness versus learned optimism. Sometimes try until you succeed. We do learn when there is a chance of success. So when you put a 2-year-old in a new car seat, they might fight, and then they realize with mom's tone, there's no negotiating this, and that child will know when to fold them, right, to cut your losses and save your energy. Whereas other times we know that it's worth hanging in there. So we've all been resilient at some point. So there must have been a situation where you really didn't have to try that as hard as you did. Maybe, has anybody run a 10-kilometer race, like a fun run or something like that, or persisted to learn how to knit, or how to do something that's difficult? But you persisted with it until you were able to accomplish it. So what what's a kind of a thing that, that you wanted to continue with? Give me an example. I'll share it with the group. Yes?
Sailing.
Sailing, so to get it right. So you're not getting it right at the beginning, that you're hitting your head, that's the boom swings around or whatever. Yeah, what's another one?
Ski marathon.
A ski marathon, so a lot, right. So first few, maybe they're only 15 or 10 Ks, and then you haven't got your water right, or your food right, or your clothes right, and then you sort it out. So, but you persisted with it because there was something in it. You knew that you'd be able to do well with it. So these things that we will persist with all fit into one of these 5 categories. So the things that help us to continue are knowledge of human nature. When we are not reactive, we're more likely to be able to be resilient. When we're action-oriented, when we have courage, and when we're kind. So I'll go very quickly through this. So understanding the differences between people. So many of the struggles that we have involve relationships. Has anybody found that? And so when you understand that the other person is wired differently, or they care about different things than you do, then you're able to, it's not as costly to yourself. You're able to separate a little bit, and then it helps. And when you understand what they care about, and the human nature, the human condition, that plays a big role in you not being triggered at every moment. It's exhausting being triggered, right? And so what is needed to feel motivated, and where tension might be coming from. It doesn't necessarily have to be your own tension, but watching and other people, when you're witnessing these things, it affects you as well. So being able to dissociate from that, and knowing how to recover from setbacks. What do you need? So that's an example of the first of the 5. Being non-reactive. Everybody knows that someone who has low impulse control that takes a lot of energy, right? And so not being able to manage themselves is a challenge. So high impulse control, high self-management, staying calm, having integrity. And so when nobody's looking, and you don't have impulse control, then there are, the old definition of character is how you behave, right, when nobody's looking. So being able to be patient, and when you're those things, it also generates trust. And that also builds a resilient team. The third one is being action-oriented. And so when you do implement, it's considered. It's not as like a reptilian reflex to something. So you are able to make decisions, you're able to take action, and you can unstuck yourself. So that way, when you're able to think more clearly, when you're not triggered, then you can be more clear on your priorities. And a person who is action-oriented probably doesn't procrastinate. They're able to move forward with it. The second last one is courage, and so that's, of course, facing our fear and being confident enough to handle the risk of failure. It also takes a lot of courage to be courageous, to actually stand up and be seen. That's a really big thing when it comes to resilience. And so you're not kind of hiding from yourself, sort of thing. It also takes courage to be objective. Remember earlier I said to actually face the situation. And so that objectivity, to stand back and imagine how somebody else might view this, because I'm in the weeds right now, and when you're upset with something, to be able to unupset yourself and stand back and view it from a different perspective. And as I said, being courageous enough to be honest with yourself. And then kind. So being able to maintain the long-term perspective. Will this bother me in 3 hours, 3 days, 3 months, 3 years? And so that will help us to not make the mistakes that we might make in a relationship. It helps us to balance the needs of all parties as well. including managing our own care. So you've all heard the expression, you need to put your own oxygen mask on first. So that's the knack of resilience. Those are 5 key things. So we'll be touching on those again. So who's heard of Viktor Frankl? Excellent. Okay, so Man's Search for Meaning. So he was, for those who don't know him, he was one of the Auschwitz prisoners who was a manager. So imagine being a Jew and managing the system of loading Jews into the ovens. And so this existence is, we can't even imagine how difficult that would have been. And so when confronted with a hopeless situation, he said, you have to find meaning. And so what helped him to even bother with life is he committed in his heart that basically I will go through the paces and do what I need to do to be able to survive so that I can share with the world what's happening. Because if I give up, I'm not serving future people, right? So he had a purpose and it helped him keep going. And because of that, we have all the benefits of his learning. So the big thing there is he made a decision. So a lot of resilience that keeps you going is that decision that it's worth it. Like that Marine who's been floating for 36 hours in salt water in a storm on the Atlantic or whatever. The thing that keeps that person hanging on to this stupid piece of wood is because he knows, he's decided that my muscles are going to be sore for the rest of my life, so sore, but it keeps them going. So that's why it's worth it to them. So one example is an email. We choose how we read things. So I could say, I never said she stole my money. Or I could say, I never said she stole my money. Or I could say, or I could interpret, I never said she stole my money, and so on. I never said she stole my money, and so on. So you can see that even though, when you first read this, you wonder, how can someone misinterpret it? Absolutely, there are many, many ways. We can read attribution, we can read meaning into these things that, into sentences that can get us into hot water. So what is it that would trigger? So let's say you were involved in this mess, and one of these definitions really, really grated you. It really is quite upsetting. So the things that trigger all of us. Who's heard of SCARF here? Have you ever heard of SCARF? Okay, so these are 5 essential needs for all humans. Status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. And so when one of those is threatened, it's a human condition that we will react and defend or make sure that our value is taken care of. You can imagine that if your status is threatened, then you're going to do something about it, right? Or if your certainty, job situations, for example, or you could be completely spent, completely exhausted, and you see something that's unjust, you will come up with the energy to stand up and in the bus, and say something or do something. So these are really, really root needs. So, and of course, so when something threatens us, then it is the human condition to move away from that threat, to reduce it. It makes us uncomfortable, right? So to reduce that discomfort, to reduce, or it could be effort as well, if it's expensive, effort-wise to do something. And similarly, of course, because we are seeking to strengthen these, if there's something that will increase it, then of course we will. So that's a key piece that's going to come up with things that cause us stress. So this is performance, this is stress, the degree to which an event stresses us is how we interpret it. And so as the stress increases, you can actually increase performance. So if you imagine, if I ask you to run around the track, you'll jog around and you'll come back, and let's say it takes you, let's say 5 minutes to go around the track. But if I say, here's $200, take 15 seconds off your time, would you?
Yes.
Yeah. And then, so I increase the stakes. And let's say it's something that requires skill, like golf. And let's say you shoot, who's a golfer? What's a number that you shoot? What's a number? Pick a number. Okay.
Nobody wants to.
Nobody?
Is that it?
Okay, how about 80? All right. And so not much stress for that, and then for a given golf course. But now I'm going to pay you $10,000 if you can do way, way, way better. It could be that you're so nervous, you want that so much. What could happen? That your golf game gets worse, not better. So you can imagine same in the workplace, right? When you're motivated, you can put things together fast, you're thinking fast, but once it's too much, then you start to drop balls. So the things that scare us, right, that cause us stress is different. Are different. And so someone, for example, a teenager who's going to maybe see this girl that he's got a crush on in the gym, the same situation will be completely irrelevant to me, but he won't be able to get a full sentence out straight, right? So in the same way, in the workplace, something that isn't a big issue for one person is for another. And why is that? What is it that makes us stupid or screensaver to come up? Well, this is the neuroscience piece. It's the way the meaning-making department, so that's thalamus, that's amygdala, so the information comes in, and then we have the Grand Central Station. It's like a air traffic controller, and then if it decides, okay, that's a very dangerous thing. Let's say you were hit when you were little, hard, with a wooden spoon. Now, I show him a wooden spoon, and he goes, yeah, so wooden spoon. So the picture of wooden spoon goes to the visual cortex. He goes, yeah, wooden spoon. Any trigger? No. If I show that same wooden spoon to this person, that it brings all kinds of meaning around mother and control issues and so on, there's actually a kind of an emergency danger high-speed route that goes directly to the amygdala that says, woo, woo, dangerous, dangerous, this is a trigger. And so this loop takes 300 milliseconds. This loop, it says, danger, run, 12. Huge difference. So there is this is unconscious. So there's an unconscious program that says, I don't care if your ankle is sprained, run now. You can see how that would have saved our lives, and it still works in a workplace. And it causes us to bite, to run. What's that called?
Flee.
Yeah, fight or flight, right? Or freeze. And so you see it in the workplace. Have you ever seen somebody bite in the workplace, the equivalent of that? Or freeze, right? And they don't answer your emails. They're difficult. Their body's there, but they seem to have checked out, and so on. So these triggers are very real. They might not be rational in 2016, but they're absolutely real. So now we look at the
Until 6.
Yeah, fantastic. So there's a single sheet with pictures. This one, that's it. Does everybody have that? Okay, so take 2 seconds, scan through, and see which one that's familiar to you. Which one have you done before? And I'm not going to ask you which one, but hold your hand up when you see one. Ooh, I recognize that one.
And I'll remind anybody who's online that that is also posted on the CoRe website if you want to go and just open it up.
Oh, we got some hands. Good. Who else recognizes something? What about maybe not for yourself, but somebody you're related to? Oh yeah, there go the hands.
Man,
Okay.
yeah, we like to report on others.
Okay, so if there's one thing I want you to take home from today, it's all behavior makes sense, always. So when you look into some of these unhelpful thinking styles, they are there because we shaped them somewhere in our past in a way that it was protective. It worked for us. So it either decreased a threat, decreased a risk of one of the scarf, right? It decreased a risk of, let's say, either abandonment, for example, or a certain behavior increased our risk of relatedness, so increased our risk of connection, and so on. And so understanding why we do the things we do, that's, remember the NAT, that's the K, so knowledge of human nature will help us to be more resilient. So as you look through that list, hands up, who sees one of those 10 that you'd like to address? Who sees something you'd like to address? Okay, great. And so when we deal with one of these things, we have internal chatter. Has anybody ever had a conversation in their head? Ever had a conversation? No. Some people call it the committee. Lots of extra thinking going on. We can think a whole order of magnitude, probably 100 times faster than we can speak. So one way of thinking of this is a jackal voice and a giraffe voice. Has anybody heard of this? Nonviolent communication? Okay. So the jackal, you can imagine, is snarly, easily triggered, bites hard, maybe smelly, dirty. I don't know what I don't think what jackals, but that, you know, like think of judgmental and so on. Whereas the giraffe is the land animal with the largest heart. They're gentle, they don't interrupt, they're quiet, and so on. So they're perceiving, right? So Marshall Rosenberg started this conversation, and so it's easy to understand that you would have this conversation between your giraffe and your jackal voice. We all have both inside. And so,
Gotta do it, sorry. I'm tweeting this anyway.
Okay. And so the jackal, all right, is the one who says, who judges, who's comparing you to somebody else. So you're not good enough, you're wrong again, he's the guy who'll say, well, what's in it for me? You know, not being very generous. This is the punisher, this is the blamer. Guess who's in charge of shame? Is that all you have to say for yourself? And so on. So that cruelty is here. Also, when we react to something or somebody, we tend to be very simplistic minded, right? So very stop that, or I'm angry because you did something or are a certain way, and so on, and makes demands. Why can't you be like your sister? Very, very hard on others in terms of their resilience, right? And then we have our giraffe voice. This is the accepting, the warm, the be whoever you are, it's all good. And you know, it is what it is. So your plane has to be de-iced again, and you've been sitting there, delayed, luggage loss, and so on. And so there's no point arguing with what you can't control. So this is this is the more serene, right? So separating reality which you can't negotiate with. It's raining on your wedding reception. Just accept that part. Separate that from an actual problem that you can solve. So this is the focus. This is the long range piece where you can think, okay, what is the true question I need to be asking? Well, do we move our wedding reception into do we rent a marquee tent, or do we change the location? Those kinds of things. So think clearly instead of running around with your hair on fire, focused on, oh my gosh, it's raining. Oh my gosh, it's raining. Oh my gosh, it's raining. That's not helpful. So Giraffe is the calming, okay, accept, and what about it? What problem needs to be solved? So also takes responsibility for our own feelings. And so when something happens and it's disappointing, or someone didn't hand something in on time, it is true they did make a mistake, but it's your giraffe voice that says, I am disappointed, and what I can do about it. I don't have to have a hissy fit, right? So being clear on needs, being clear on personal values, and absolutely a giraffe will take care of one's needs. But doing that without diminishing the other, making a request, so being clear on where you end and where I start, and this is what I need in order for us to work together, those kinds of things. So those are examples of nonviolent communication. So I'm going to ask for 3 or 4 people to come up and do a bit of an improv. So has anybody done improv where each person says a word, and it makes a story, so you don't know where the story is going to go? Has anybody done that before? Yeah, okay. Do you want to come up?
Not really.
Okay,
I can't take only because I can't take a question, so if I do. I will.
Oh, okay, all
If you
right.
need me to, I will.
So is anybody else willing to? I need to. Oh, thank you.
Go up, Darcy.
Anybody else?
Well, looking at
Come on up. Come on up. Are you?
All right.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So inside the screen, and so this is an improv game. So each person says one word, and we're going to tell the story about Bill, the downtown dog. Okay, Bill goes downtown, and you can start in with the first word of the sentence. Bill was
Happy.
about
The
famous
Pizza.
store. Oh, punctuation is free. You can put punctuation at any time.
that
He
Loved.
His favorite
and
Most expensive.
Oh,
Most.
expensive. It's in my head now.
pepperoni.
period.
He
Decided
To
Invest
all
his
dog bones.
into
a
pizza
With
surprising
results.
he
found
nothing
Bad.
on
the
Bill. Period.
Period.
Great. Okay, thank you. All right. So, okay, come back. Oh, so now, who experienced a situation where you were headed, okay, you heard the story going this way, and the person right before you went, oh, this way? Did anybody of you have that? It turned a corner? And then what happened? What happened in your head when they did that?
I had to find a new word.
And so we all had to do that. And so what does it do that? What does it feel like when you have to scramble, when you have to find a new word?
I don't know, I thought it was fun. Like I wasn't trying to take the conversation anywhere in particular, so it's whatever you said was perfect.
Okay. That would be resilient. There we go. Okay, great. Thank you, volunteers. So who's had an example in their lives where they were thinking, okay, they've done their homework, they've done their research, you've done your research, and you're going along the road, and then something happens. And they were going this way. Oh, but you wanted to go that way. Who's had that? And so sometimes in real life, when that happens, there's a jarring. So can somebody think of when that happened in your life? And when that happened, what is it that makes that difficult? What is it that you have to grieve, or what is it you have to go through?
You're losing that future path that you're no longer on.
So in this case, that's a grieving, right? So in this case, how long was the grieving? Maybe so small you don't even, it's a disappointment, and then you're boom, on to the next word. But in real life, there is that grieving process. So accepting, okay, we're not going to be doing that after all, is key to be able to move forward. So in this, where's the, okay, in this handout, when we have an adverse event, a disappointment, a setback, or a failure, for example, I would call that an adversity. Yeah? We do?
Whatever's there.
Yep. There you go. And so,
And again, I'll just repeat, that's on the website. It's the first one listed for anybody who's picking it up online.
first one listed on the website, so please feel free to print it out. And so, so there are 5 steps to moving forward. So this is the first real tool. The others were mnemonics, they're able to help you, but this is something you can actually populate with a real life situation. And so when we are triggered by something and we respond in a way that's not so great. So does anybody have a situation that there's something that bugs you, like if someone cuts you off in traffic, or something that people do, or they throw garbage on the ground, or what's something that triggers you? We all have them.
Well, I went into MEC to get my bike tuned up, and they want to keep it until next Monday, and I wanted to go for a long ride on Saturdays.
Okay.
My bike is gone.
So a disappointment that your bike is in the shop now and you don't get to ride. Fantastic. Oh, so that's a disappointment. So what's something that actually makes you upset? I'm looking for more climate here.
Well, a different future. Somebody's given a different future reality to us, and we have to live with it or whatever.
So somebody's handed us something that that really was unexpected and disappointing. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's an example? Anybody? An example that'll really make us angry or disappointed, or yes, will trigger an emotion. Mm-hmm.
I'll keep it as brief as I can.
If you're
but
gonna, you might
Yeah,
have to come up.
yeah.
No, if it's really brief, Sue's repeating, but
Okay.
if it's a
I can
story, you
repeat.
might want to step up,
designed
that's
and
all.
built a house on the St. Lawrence River on a cliff.
Okay.
Loved it.
Yes.
And because of a divorce, had to leave it.
Oh, there's a lot there. Designed and built a beautiful house on a cliff above the St. Lawrence. Due to
Thousand
divorce, loss of that beautiful property and all it meant, in addition to the divorce. Okay. So major adversity, probably one of the highest there. Okay. Condolences. So, so when we react, so beliefs. So this is the reactions. The reactions that. Listen, we'll just not navigate from here. So let's say, okay, so that was a great way to start, and I'm going to separate it out, and let's say we have a partner who lies, okay? And so now when we react to the lying partner, what's an example of a reaction that we'd have?
Anger.
Anger. Okay, so let's say, what's an example of an angry response?
You lied.
Oh yeah, yes, okay, words. But what's something I would do that shows that I'm mad?
Yell.
Yeah, okay, raise my voice. So the triggering event was I've been lied to, and my belief is that if I yell, this person is going to stop lying to me. So the unconscious. So this is the reptile. This is the very, very ancient part of the brain. Remember with the arrows going? So the really middle part of your brain is the oldest. And so our reactions are similar to a rat, a dog, a wolf, a bear. That's the fight or flight. And so this reaction that we have, this system that we have, the rat equivalent of biting is yelling in this case. And so the belief is that my hope is that if I yell at this person, then they will stop doing that. And so, of course, this logic is invisible to the owner, right? And so I'm not thinking through, well, that's ridiculous, but we do it anyway. So I had an expectation that, let's say in this case it's a he, that he would be honest with me, and he breached that unspoken contract. And that is what causes me to get real dumb, real mad, real primitive, and I go deaf. I'm blind to other opinions, perspectives, and if he didn't lie, but there was a misunderstanding or an email I didn't see or some other thing that he actually didn't lie, I will assume that he lied because I know he's a liar, right? Have you ever seen that happen? That we just map onto the behavior. So, so the next step is the consequences. So actions or thoughts that reinforce the belief set. So that's where I will search for reasons why yelling makes sense. Because, man, it feels good to raise my voice. I feel like I'm actually doing something. So that's empowering me. That would feel, oh, I should put the scarf thing. So, can you see?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. So, so that would help my sense of autonomy, right? And my sense of certainty. Because I know that when I yell, in the past, people responded. They looked at me, they paid attention to me, and that makes me feel more that like I'm in charge, and it gives me a sense of status. Whether it's rational or not is a different question, but it makes my reptile feel like I'm doing something about it. And so, but in fact, the real consequences are that in practice, this is stepping out from the reptile brain to the real impact. What conclusions do you come to when you see somebody throwing a hissy fit and raising their voice and yelling hysterically? What does that make you think about this person?
They're out of control.
They're out of control. Yeah, so your respect for their judgment, what just happened? Might have taken a hit, right? Okay, what else are you concluding about this person?
I think they have a bit of a lack of a grasp on reality.
Mm-hmm. So that thank you, that they have a lack of a grasp on reality. So even if you said something to them that would help them to, that you think would help them to understand, they might not even hear you clearly. So that could happen when you can say something and you'll say, you didn't hear what I just said. And they'll say, I heard everything you said. And they'll be able to repeat it verbatim, word for word, but they didn't get the meaning. Have you ever worked with somebody like that? It's difficult, and that's because they're hijacked. That's because their thinking brain, so that's the prefrontal cortex. Does anybody know what I'm talking about when I talk about okay, so the higher brain it's actually, you can see changes in the wiring and the blood vessels. It's actually shut down, and the fasciculus, so the bundle of wires, become disorganized, and the firing is disorganized, and you don't get as clean a signal. So the consequences end up being actually very expensive, because the yelling person, do they think they're being irrational? No, they think they're rocking this. They know exactly what's going on, right? So helping a person to become self-aware so they can step out of their emotional trigger is the dispute phase. So that's asking, okay, is there something that I might be missing here? So staying open. When we are triggered, our thinking brain, our ventromedial prefrontal cortex, the parts of our brain that are logical, they're able to predict, they're able to read other people's emotions. They're everything a dog can't do. A dog cannot plant seeds for next fall. They can't think forward. It's hard for them. They're just on the edge of being able to read, what might be going on in a month from now and so on. They can read what might be going on for another being, for sure, who has a dog. Yeah, who has a cat. You've seen that. And so helping the person who's triggered to get a grip on that, and being careful of these blind assumptions, right, that they make. Because when we are triggered, think of a mama lion. Her cubs have not eaten in 2 days, and she has been tracking this troop of antelopes for 36 hours waiting for them to finally get close enough to the grass, so close enough to her so that she can get one. If she is just about to run, and she doesn't want to spend another day and a half tracking them, waiting patiently, if she goes, oh, I could get that one. Oh, that one's a pretty nice one. Oh, no dinner for anybody. And so So that's why it's so important and so primal that when we're triggered and someone is trying to give us another way of thinking of things, we're deaf. You ever seen that? Or our peripheral vision is actually shut down. We actually lose our ability to see things that we normally would have picked up in our environment, our side environment. And so these are real changes that happen in our acuity. And so it happens, of course, in conversations, right? And or you send something in an email and they're upset and they will have read it, but the meaning of that third sentence didn't click because they'd already come to a conclusion. Have you ever seen that before? So being resilient is being able to not be triggered and say, okay, I need to reread this with a different lens. Okay, deep breath, let's try this again. One of the ways to untrigger yourself and to get your prefrontal cortex back online is by forcing it, is by using it, by actually kind of bring it in by labeling things. So think of the functions of a dog. A dog does not label things because they don't have language. So when you force yourself to think, okay, what's going on for me? I'm disappointed. I'm frustrated. We made a contract, and so when you become aware of what's going on in your gut or your heart or your jaw, I'm feeling tense, then you've automatically, once you're able to label and become self-aware, you've brought your prefrontal cortex back online. And then you can step back and then use it to read that email again and to think carefully, although, of course, you might slip back in again. So to be aware of what's going on for you, very, very important. So that's the dispute, the D of ABCDE, to say, is this reality, or am I in a maelstrom that I've created in my head? It might be justified. Maybe they did something horrible to you, but you're not of service to anybody if you've got the brain of a rat, right? And then last stage is to evolve. This is your chance to rewrite how you'd prefer to respond. And so, so what would be different if you're aware of these silent patterns? So one question to ask, for example, would be, what would it be like to be on the receiving end of me right now? And over the long term, what impact do I want to have? How do I really want this to end up? Is it really about leveling the playing field, fairness? Is it about leveling the playing field and I want revenge on this person because they've been so unjust? I want to get back at them because it's to do with status, right? It's to do with autonomy. They did not respect me. So to be able to separate, okay, it's actually not about the project X39F at work. It's the fact that this person shamed me in front of the boss. So now I'm going to go for every opportunity to get back at them. And so when we realize, okay, this is about revenge. I really want to get this guy back. Then you can take a rational look at it and say what was unfair. He did a wrong thing, right? He made a mistake or whatever. And so then you're able to respond logically to the real question, the presenting problem in the workplace, and separate the unfinished business. And then you're a much more valuable professional, right? Because you didn't get triggered, and you're able to manage your own feelings better. You're not at their mercy. So basically you would populate these boxes and walk through what you would prefer the script inside your head to sound like. Would that be useful to anybody? A, B, C, D, E? It's a great tool. Okay, so that's agility, being able to change. So you're in the full throes of, you're going for the jugular, you're going to get this guy back, but being able to put the brakes on and put a timeout sign and say, uh-oh, I'm just about to make a career-limiting move here, to stop yourself. So being able to catch that just when you're about to make a mistake. So that's that. So it's an anatomy of the reflexes, and so it's catching that slow motion train wreck, being aware of it, and helping somebody who maybe is causing the train wreck to protect their career as well. So now we're going to talk about action planning. On this 2-page one with the trees on the front. There we go. So the action plan. So when you saw those 10 suboptimal thinking styles, hands up, who saw one that they would like to do less of? Okay, so I want you to look at that personal action plan and think through, in order for me to make this change, in order for me to actually rewire my reflexes, what needs to happen? So what belief? So begin with the end in mind. What would you like it to sound like, look like? How would you measure it? What would you be saying and doing and feeling with whom? So that's the beginning of the action plan. And then I will help myself to make that change by adjusting my old belief or script or rule away from, so that's that chatter that was going on before, and replacing it with a more effective statement. So would anybody be willing to share an example of an old script to a new script? I have one. So as a coach, I see lots of senior leaders, and many of them are quite confident, right, and quite flippant. And because they don't need to be tiptoeing around people, it's other people who are currying their favor. And so when someone says something and makes a mistake, a common response is to diminish the person who just made a mistake. Creates a risk-averse culture. Has anybody worked in a risk-averse culture? Or knows of one? And so that's where mistakes are not okay. And so the person will make the mistake, and the CEO or senior leader will say something that'll diminish them. What's an example of something they might say?
There's one mistake and it becomes a big, oh, you always do it this way.
Right, there you go. So let's say a CEO, and this isn't a male female. Some of the female CEOs are as interesting as the men. And so the let's say it's a he. He'll say, "Oh, you always do that. There you go again." Right. What's another example?
You should.
You should. I call that shoulding on others. Right. And so you should know that. And so for a person in a leadership role, when they are disappointed in one of their reports, who should have known something, it would have been, anybody knows this, right? So they're disappointed. They think it's they're triggered because one of their scarf things, right? Maybe it's a status thing. Oh gosh, I hired this guy who's not doing a good job, and so maybe the CEO's status has dropped in his own relationship to himself. Does everybody know you have a relationship to yourself? Who has a relationship to yourself? Oh yes, we all do. So when you do something stupid, genuinely, like you miss a meeting that you called for people or whatever. So I did that. And so how we treat ourselves, right? You idiot! How could you be so blah, blah, blank, blank, blank? Right. Has anybody ever done that or heard of someone who does that? No. Maybe someone else. And so that's that relationship with yourself. So in order to feel confident to be able to make changes, we have to feel safe, right? We have to be courageous enough to be able to try something new. And so that's where self-empathy plays a big role in learning. If I put a huge pressure on somebody and say, okay, remember these words, ready? Apple, daisy, Texas, frying pan, green dress, Dunsmuir, Manitoba, and 2 cups of brown sugar. So if a person is put on, as the pressure increases, we're less and less able to think clearly about that. So back to the change. So the key is when we are safe and relaxed, we're more likely to remember and do a great performance than when we're scared and feeling judged and feeling threatened by things. Our brain gets less and less capable, right? So self-empathy, key to learning. So how are we doing? Okay, just about open for questions. So then knowing your self-sabotage. So if this was easy, I would have done it already. I have a certain pattern of coping with pressure. Everybody has a pattern of coping with pressure. Would somebody be able to share common patterns? Not your own pattern, of course, but a pattern that somebody that you know might have in coping with pressure.
Ignore it.
Ignore it.
That's not.
She said not share your own.
I was thinking yours.
Thank you.
La. Speak to the hand.
Deadline? What deadline? Yesterday? I don't know.
Very common, very common. Who knows somebody who's got that as well? Oh yeah, all over. What's another one? coping with this kind of thing?
Inappropriate
Pressure.
jokes.
Inappropriate jokes. Aha, okay. What's an example?
Things that aren't necessarily reflective of somebody's core beliefs, but they think will get a laugh or make everybody else more comfortable, but are really risky.
Right. So they have a belief system that if I'm popular, I'll be more liked, maybe, or maybe I'll have more credibility, or they have some belief. Remember the bee or the consequences, where the reptile brain is, they're threatened, they're worried about any time that this is triggered, any time reduces your IQ. And so the belief is that, well, if they're popular and they make people laugh, then your status goes up, for example. Excellent. And one more? Are there any more examples out there?
Impose control.
Impose control, right? Very often when you need to be thanks, trusting more, the more scared we get, what do? We grip. We grip because we really, really want certainty. We're starved for certainty. And the less safe, the less confident, the less calm we are about the outcome, the more scared we are, then the dumber we get, right? So we do exactly the things that are non-rational from the outside observer, but makes really good sense from the reptile perspective, right? If you're scared something's going to let go, something's going to get away, of course you're going to grab it. So those are great examples of triggered behaviors. So one thing I might do that make implementing this difficult for myself, which is a nice way of saying how might I sabotage, no matter how sterling my intent is, that I tend to maybe procrastinate, or I tend to overdo because I'm a perfectionist and I really, really want it done well, and then I miss the deadline. Anybody know a perfectionist? They get stuck doing it perfectly when they, So the antidote for that is remembering that done is better than perfect. And so how will I protect my risk? How will I protect myself from the risk of self-sabotage? So is that calling in somebody to help out, and so on. So, and then a learning partner, so an accountability buddy, and maintaining it. So this isn't a once and done. Resilience and being able to change your behavior, change your thinking habits, change your patterns, change your reflexes, so that they're more mindful, so that you're more able to stay present in the situation, require practice, 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 practice. And so who's heard of 10,000 swings, like the golf swing? So when a golf pro or a hockey pro, let's say their wrist is bent and they have to straighten it, they have to unwire, basically they have to change it, and their performance goes way down while they get it sorted out. Or piano players, anything that you've done lots of hours in, it takes a long time. Well, how many times have you been doing these reflexes? Way more than 10, right? However, can you turn a tanker around? Yes, it might take 4 nautical miles. Is it worth it? Oh yes. Don't just keep doing the same thing, right? It's well worth it, because then you get going on the right track. Also, a little shift, just like a golf swing, even a 1/4 of a degree at the tee turns into what at 200 meters, right? Turns into a huge difference. So making slight adjustments are well worth the investment. No time like the present to shift and to develop and deepen your resilience. So, and then making sure that you're committed. Now the bottom line, G, the measure of how committed I am to this goal, this is really key, really key. If it's not 10, you need to reword your goal. That means you need to make it feasible, you need to make it a size that you know that you can do this. And that's especially important with your accountability partner. Right? Okay, so action planning. So this is what I have, what I am, what I can. Classic behavior change is smoking cessation. Has anybody here smoked a cigarette before? people who struggle to quit, they have found that the shift, it's not a doing. A person who views themselves still as a smoker can actually not smoke, but as soon as the course is over, it still makes sense for them to smoke. Whereas when they have made the shift at this level, I am a non-smoker, that's who I am, then smoking doesn't make sense anymore. So that's the type of shift that has to happen for resilience, because that's at the unconscious level. That's at the identity level, at the worth level. So having the serenity to accept, the courage to change, and the wisdom to differentiate. Who's heard of that one? So the action plan would be the next thing, which we've gone through already. And now it's time for questions. So I am very happy to repeat them. So we have another 15, 20?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So any email questions?
Not so far, no.
Okay. What's that?
No, just.
Oh, you would have piped up,
Yeah.
sure. Questions from a neuroscientist who deals with abrasive leaders and conflict and change and mergers.
Are you, in a sense, saying that our self-reflection on this is going to help us in our work as mediators, looking at the other side? I'd like you to say a little bit more about that.
Yes, okay, so the question is, how will this help me as a mediator? Is that right?
Yeah.
Or is there more to it?
No, that's...
Okay, so that's the, so what, that's nice, scarf, whatever, dab, so. Because as we go through our lives, stuff happens. Not just the flat tire on your way into a really, really important mediation, but being able to be resourceful when difficulties happen. So let's say, so I've had different types of cancer. So diagnosis, melanoma. So I thought everything would be fine. Who would have thunk, right? And then you get this diagnosis and it shifts things. So I could so knowing that we have a choice in how we receive the message, that's a really, really big one. So even though none of you are going to fly off the handle and scream around the room with your hair on fire, jumping up and down, that's not what you do. But the wiring that causes us to struggle with disappointments or confusion. For example, if somebody who's learning a new gadget, a widget, I just switched over to Apple from my beloved other devices, the non-Apple devices, and it's a struggle. And sometimes I don't know whether I'm going to send it out the window because it's not doing. There's no button to push. There's no dot. They're swiping, and it's not behaving. So those kinds of things. Yes. So it's not an impulse control thing in the workplace so much because you've got that probably dialed. But there are other little thorns in our side that are expensive, right? And being able to say, this is an inanimate object. You know, I can, that my serenity, my cortisol, who's heard about cortisol? Right, so that's corrosive, right? That's hard on our arteries, it's a wear and tear on our system to get it back out of the blood. That's expensive, so knowing that I have a choice here. I can either, indulge, get myself simple-brained by responding to it, or remember, okay, take a step back. It's doing its best. Siri is doing her best, and okay, let's there must be another way. So being able to think creatively. Does that answer the question? So yes, it's not the big lose control situations, but to be able to protect yourself and to stay resilient in your own situation.
And I would just, I was gonna add something, Pat, just that
Yeah.
I was thinking, and I think I'm fine here, so you probably don't have to repeat, Sue, but
Okay.
it may be that you wanna contribute to what I'm saying. One place where, when Sue was talking, I was really thinking about, that's interesting for mediation, and just one specific, there were a few, but one specific was when you were talking about evolve, as in your ABCDE. And that question about the chance to rewrite how you might respond, how others might respond. But as a personal thing, I was thinking about that as, that's an interesting reflective moment about the scripts that I use as a mediator and the responses that I use. And I was actually initially thinking, oh, that's really cool, how do you see that? I think a lot of you have read the report about the family mediation project, the online one, where they were talking about one of the things they saw was that online, you saw yourself, and because you see yourself, you change the way you behave. And I was thinking, it made me start thinking, okay, that's actually a really interesting frame for thinking about online mediation, where you see yourself and you actually have an opportunity to step back and think about, how do I evolve as a mediator? How do I present myself? What are the steps I might take? And how do I capture the scripts that I'm engaged in and don't necessarily know? But anyway, it was a reflection that just came to me, and only because of you going through that list of things.
That would be a very, very powerful tool. I don't think we need to be online to help
No.
people be self-aware by showing them a camera of what they look like.
Yeah, no.
Wouldn't that be useful? I
Yeah.
think people would manage themselves differently when they saw how ugly they can be, right? And so, I mean, that's not a very nice thing to say, but sometimes when we're triggered and we lose it, we have no self-awareness. What goes down the toilet right away is empathy and self-awareness. Boom, boom, out. And so to be able to regain that, when you regain self-awareness and they can see themselves, or when they know they're being recorded, oh, okay, well then they're more aware. Does that make sense? So yeah, getting feedback on
Anyway, just
how,
a thought, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Yeah.
I'll come over.
Great. Okay.
Good plan.
Okay.
As long as you're in front of the camera, it's
Okay,
it's
so,
Right
You don't
here.
actually have
so
to
I have
do
to
it.
come here to ask my question.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just gonna ask, if, as, a lot of what we do as mediators is help other people find their own resilience. So where would you start in supporting someone else to become more resilient?
Fantastic. Okay, beautiful. Okay, that's a coaching question. Good. Yay. So I would call in appreciative inquiry. Who's heard of appreciative inquiry? Hands up. Excellent. So the goal would be to have the person first believe that they are a resilient person. If they haven't, if they don't see a way out of this pickle that they're in, then ask, give me a time where at some point in your past, you might have been just learning to balance on a two-wheeler or whatever it was. Think of a time where you were able to get through something that's similar to this. You know, you were resourceful, you were creative, you were able to ask for help or come up, you know, whatever it is that will help them. And then when they see, oh yeah, it is in me, okay, then that shifts their lens and it gets them out of their learned helplessness. And they become more, well, that's self-efficacy, more, they gain agency. Who knows what agency is? So that belief in their ability to navigate this. And yeah, it stinks right now, but we can do this. I can do this. I'm gonna work through this, you know, even though it's hard, to know that they can, that they're tough enough to be able to sort this and not just crumple. Does that work? Little tool there? Yeah, so appreciative inquiry, asking them of a situation that they've resolved a similar, maybe smaller, but similar thing. And then they can see, yeah, it's in me. Great, thank you, yeah.
Do you mind just stepping forward, Tom? Your voice doesn't carry that well. You have a nice, gentle voice. Yeah.
So
So I'm just,
right into the screen here.
I'm supposed to.
Well, then you're visible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
So, I tend to look at this simply. Remember Gandalf or Frankl? The only freedom given to us is the freedom to choose how we respond to a situation. So how does that, I'm kind of a simple person, so a simple thing. So how does that compare to what, or how do you break that down when you hear that in terms of this scheme of things? How does it compare? What's the relationship of those things?
So, nobody can take away that freedom to choose how we receive, how we perceive, how we choose how to feel, how we assign meaning. And so I would stretch that into the person's heart to know that we are always at choice. So if, for example, someone struggles with a victim stance, they perceive, they feel done by, right? They feel disempowered, they feel disrespected, they feel all the disses, right? The just terrible situation. That will cost their resourcefulness, their self-efficacy, these things that nourish their ability to respond and be resilient. So when it seems like everything's been taken away and stripped from a person, in order for them to heal, you have to stabilize their identity first, so that they know in their gut that they're worthy, that they're capable, that they have what they need to be able to take the next step. All they need is just the next step. And okay, they're not going to, be the prime minister, just the next step. And so, so that would be one response that that we always have a level of autonomy, no matter what. Is that what you meant with the Viktor Frankl example?
It's interesting what you said.
Okay. So can you reword the question? Maybe I can.
No, it's not I'm just curious how you, are you basically trying to illustrate better the anatomy of Viktor Frankl's basic approach? Is that what you mean?
That we have a choice and resilience is plastic. So everybody in this room, everybody on Earth has an opportunity to develop their resilience, to further develop it.
That's what lights you up.
Yeah, to keep growing. Yeah, and keep learning. And
So I like the way you brought that back to the previous question, in a sense.
So come inside so that
This is your thing, not mine.
Yeah, but you're key to making this interesting because you're asking great questions. So what was your last question?
Well, it seems to me that what you're doing is trying to help us better understand the anatomy, the parts, the progressions within Viktor Frankl's statement or Gandalf's statement. And so you were, I feel like, taking it back to the previous question in terms of helping somebody else understand who they are and that they, in fact, have this choice and it can't be taken away from them. So that was interesting.
Right on. And to even add onto that I think it was Shakespeare who said, there are no good events or bad events. It's thinking that makes it.
There is no good or bad, only thinking makes it so.
Makes it so. And so, again, it's that attribution, it's that thalamus, that amygdala inside our brain. From our past experiences, our value systems, our hurts, our successes, that we attribute goodness or badness, or better than, or less than.
And when we do that, we limit ourselves, actually. When we say, this is good, that's bad, then we limit our ability to adapt within that changing circumstance.
Certainly in the...
makes it so, and is our downfall.
In the mindfulness to be able to just be present and just accept, yes. In order, balancing that with striving to run faster. An Olympic athlete would not, we wouldn't have broken the 4-minute mile if people were accepting that, a 5-minute mile is lovely and sufficient.
I guess I'm saying is, we as mediators, probably we can all remember a time when we dug in our heels and we, thinking made it so, this is the way it's got to be.
Fact.
And that's where our downfall, thinking made us inflexible.
So that's where it's also human nature to confuse fact is not, oops, opinion.
Yeah.
Sorry. There, we blur the lines, look at that, there we go. Sure. Opinion is not the same thing as fact. And the owner of the opinion who feels that it's fact doesn't see that it's not fact, right? So helping that objectivity. And so when you dug in your heels, or who's dug in their heels in the past? Never. Never. And so when we feel that this is the right way, we just know it's right because of our value system, our experiences and stuff. In that context, our experience was that this did work better.
We sometimes,
genuine.
we actually call up, we're in a multi-party mediation, right?
Yeah.
We call up the parties, they agree to this, 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 and this. You walk in there assuming it's gonna be this, 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 and it isn't this, 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 and this, and we gotta adapt. If we don't adapt, we got a problem.
Without judging.
Yeah.
It's hard to not judge because they've breached trust. Maybe they didn't disclose. Maybe they actually lied. Maybe they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes or whatever. They're trying to be low integrity, whatever, trying to get more than what is they're owing. So it's hard to not judge when we have our own values.
Anyway, thanks. I'll let other people.
Oh, well, thank you. That was great. Thank you very much for your points. Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could speak to the connection between physical and emotional resiliency. Because I know for me, like, I like to have a physical challenge. That's part of my self-care. Like, we talk about self-care and resiliency. And so when I feel physically strong and challenged, right, that contributes to my emotional resilience.
Yes. So the question is, how does a physical challenge, responding and trying really, really hard physically, what is the link to our emotional resilience? So being able to have that stick-to-itness. Well, I would say it's a continuum, right? So someone who's never run before but has decided to try the sun run and joins a running clinic, thinks, oh, I just want to finish it. I'll just walk at the beginning of the clinic. But then as she trains more, she sees that she can maintain it. It's not just, run, walk. She can, pretty well do the most of it. So belief and confidence, our confidence, which feeds our identity, comes from our perception of our competence. So when you see your own competence, that will nourish your confidence. And it's your confidence that helps you to stay calm. Have you ever met someone who is not confident and you're trying to work with them, they're trying to impress you, they're trying to make you think they're smart or rich or decisive or powerful or something, and you're not even working with the person, right? You're working with the shell. So backing up. So when we are confident from other successes in our life, it bolsters and stabilizes our identity so that when hits happen, we can roll with it and know that even though this person is lying at me or insulting me, I am a good person. And maybe I made a mistake, but I'm a good person and I will make this right. Or maybe it's not true, and to know that you have enough of a circle around you that the way we behave the other times will trump what they're saying that you did that once. So does that answer the somatic question? So yeah, physically, of course, and that felt sense of competence, of mastery is absolutely delicious. It's wonderful. And of course we sleep better. When we sleep better, we're more calm and so on. We hurt less. Great question. Yeah.
We might have time for one more or for a summary comment from you, whichever you'd prefer, Sue. So
Those have been great questions. You know, I'd love to hear from the class, just popcorn, if anybody can think of something. What was the best part of the session? What's a keeper for you? Or a pearl, or a moment, or a story that stuck for you?
Giraffe voice.
What's that? Giraffe voice.
Oh.
Yes. Yes. And it's important to love our jackal too, right? Because then the jackal will relax. Yeah. And so, yeah, okay, giraffe voice. What else landed for you?
Opinion does not equal fact.
Yeah. Because yeah, great, thank you. Opinion does not equal fact. What's another one that stuck?
I like the resilient by choice exercise. I think it's useful.
The ABCDE one? Or
The page.
Yes, oh yes, the action plan.
Yeah, the
Great.
action plan.
Yeah, that's hopefully it's gonna land, yeah?
What keeps repeating in my mind is that what defeats us is when we have expectations and it's being aware of moving back and being objective rather than getting engaged in our expectations.
Yes, many expectations, thank you. So being able to move back from our expectations, many of them are our own. So asking me the question, whose rule is that? And does this person have the same rule? No. Are we working from the same contract? So being aware of these invisible rules will protect us from disappointment. Mm-hmm. Great, thanks. One last one. A keeper, a pearl.
Well, I already said the one that I was writing down, but I also quite enjoyed watching the improv, and it had me thinking about other improv games that could translate really nicely into mediation contexts and could form the opportunity to tell the same story that you were telling. So a way to introduce some of the concepts. And I was thinking of a storytelling improv. I can share it another time with other people. I don't want to go into it right now, but you were giving me ideas for what could be played in mediation.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Yeah.
Kindness is good too. Adding kindness.
Ah, yes.
is great.
Beginning, we can't give what we don't have. And so this kindness begins with self-empathy before you're able to be truly empathic for others.
Let's not forget the kindness part.
Right. Okay, so my contact info is in there, and they may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And so I've asked for an evaluation page to be on the Resilient by Choice handout on the back page. Oh, he deleted the blank. Oh no, there it is.
No, it's
perfect.
there. You
Yeah.
can rip it off.
So
You
yeah,
can tear
rip it
that
off. Rip it off, please.
Pretty sure he didn't read it, but he did print it.